I've been to Afghanistan last year. All these places where the issues and the pain of people needs to be told so that we can come back and try to do something about it. If not in the Security Council, certainly the voices of those in the General Assembly. So thank you for what you do. And that's me today, taking the opportunity of the Secretary General being on the plane. But now I have the honor to read his speech, and he really did want this read to you, so I'm going to read it. Bear with me. Maybe I've got a posher voice, and I would like to think I look much better. But Steph, don't you report that in the media meeting tomorrow Monday morning. But ladies and gentlemen, friends, it is a pleasure to have met with women and men of the United Nations Correspondents tonight on behalf of the Secretary General. 2024 has been an incredible turmoil for the global community. It has also been a powerful reminder of the importance of journalism and why your work is at the heart of what we do at the United Nations. We can all agree that rigorous journalism is the backbone of accountability, of justice, and protecting human rights. Because facts are the greatest antidote to the lies, the disinformation, the false narratives, fueling hate and division amongst humanity. And because when people and institutions, including the United Nations, are held to account, we all benefit. Covering the UN may not be the easiest beat in journalism, and I think Edie just showed us that, because SG didn't say that. But relentless deadlines, translating incomprehensible UNEs into words that civilians can understand, last-minute briefings, and somehow you're expected to manage a workload that covers the entire fast-moving world. But every step of the way, you are there, keeping us informed, keeping us accountable, asking tough questions, speaking truth to power, however uncomfortable or inconvenient, and acting as the world's conscience in the moments that matter. And for many of you, reporting extends beyond the professional to the personal. Reporting on events that affect your own countries, your families, and loved ones cannot be easy. But again, you're there, unwavering in your commitment to report the truth, sometimes paying the ultimate price, and for this, you have my deepest respect and admiration. Tonight is also a moment to reflect on another truth, that there has never been a more dangerous time to be in your profession. According to the Committee to Protect Journalists, 82 journalists and media workers have been killed so far this year. Every death is a loss for our UN family, but also for the human family. Everyone in this room tonight is all too aware of the enormous threats you face in doing your jobs. Day in, day out, the free press is under attack. Countries made a commitment to the Pact of the Future to respect and to protect journalists and media professionals. Yet we know that the threats that journalists reach far beyond the front lines of conflict. Detention of journalists is at an all-time high. Online harassment is being weaponized to silence journalists. And women journalists in particular are often targeted with the threat of sexual violence. All of this is unacceptable, and it must stop now. Freedom of the press and safety of the press are one and the same, and we will never stop calling for the immediate release of journalists who have been detained simply for doing their job. We will never give up calling for an end to impunity for those who threaten, attack, or kill journalists. And we will never stop calling for better measures to safeguard journalists in carrying out their vital work. Friends, ladies and gentlemen, you've dedicated your careers to giving a voice to the voiceless. Well, tonight it's our turn to use our voices to thank you. And let's be honest, even though there are days I would like to have freedom from the press, I hope you know how much we are deeply appreciative of your courage and everything that you do. And so, I will end my remarks, and here somebody's going to get me a glass, by asking you to please raise a glass to the UN Correspondents Association. This is That's when you get high on life. To the UN Correspondents Associations, thank you for your tireless work.
Amina, Mohammed, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, DSG. And yes, you are certainly more delightful to live in.
Which I accept in honor of the over 120 million people who have been forced to flee their homes. Refugees that I've met, like Grace from South Sudan and Hantam from Mali, who live in exile but still work for the benefit of others. I also accept it on behalf of the UNHCR personnel working tirelessly to protect forcibly displaced people all over the world. And of course, congratulations to those journalists who have been honored this evening for your courage and commitment to holding power to account and your vital role in bringing factual information to people during an age of mis- and disinformation. Please continue your work in helping to shine a light on the human impact of these forgotten crises. So thank you. The world is, as we know, in a state of great volatility, and the next few decades may well define the path of our planet and of humanity. Despite this, we must remind ourselves that it is not only governments which shape the course of history, but our children and our children's children who will decide the course of the future. In successive generations and in the power of the people, we find hope. I know from my own family's personal history that anyone can become a refugee at any time. During the Second World War, my grandfather, Nicholas Taptoclus, was training as a doctor in Greece when the Nazis invaded Athens. As troops pushed through the mainland and swathes of the country fell under occupation, he was left with few options but to escape. Embarking on a journey that many thousands of refugees have since made, but in the opposite direction, he boarded a tiny boat and crossed the Aegean Sea to Turkey. From there, he traveled across land and finally found safety in Damascus. In this momentous week for Syria, my thoughts are with its people, and I'm hoping, alongside everyone here, that you agree with me, for lasting peace in Syria, we hope. At the end of the war, as German troops withdrew from Greece, my grandfather made his way back to Europe, and in April 1945 he joined one of the first humanitarian agencies established by the newly formed United Nations, the UN Relief and Rehabilitation Administration, which can be said as the first incarnation of the UNHCR. Now, yes, the UN Relief and Rehabilitation Administration came to an end in 1948, as we know, but the enormous task of helping over 40 million Europeans who had been uprooted by war to find their way back home had only just begun. And that is how the UNHCR was formed in 1950 with a simply 3-year mandate to finish the job. And as we all know, history didn't quite work like that. 80 years after the peace was declared in Europe, the work of the UN continues as war still plays out, as you all know, in Ukraine, Lebanon, Gaza, Sudan, DRC, and elsewhere. But the most vulnerable continue to pay the costliest price. The Second World War, however, did allow for moral consensus of the Geneva Conventions and the UN Charter, which opens with the words, "We, the peoples of the United Nations, determined to save succeeding generations from the scourge of war." The values of the UN Charter continue to be relevant today: peace, justice, human rights, and equality. And although much has changed since 1945, the UN still remains the only organization where the world's nations can gather together to discuss global problems like forced displacement, like climate change, and find shared solutions. As we know, thank you, that one person. As we know, in a deeply, As we know, in a deeply polarized world, there can be a rapacious hunger to criticize organizations like the UN. But from its inception, in simplest terms, it has been an organization set up to help those in deepest need. an organization designed to represent the very best of human confluence. It is imperative that the UN continues to do its work for successive generations and, quite frankly, for the good of humanity. Unlike my grandfather, I don't have the skills to provide medical help to people in need, but as a Goodwill ambassador, I will keep making the moral case for asylum and for the UNHCR to encourage public support and funding to ensure meaningful solutions and protection for displaced people. So finally, that is why I hope to inspire solidarity in the next generation to think less about us and them and more about we, the peoples. Thanks very much for having me. Thank you.
Theo James, ladies and gentlemen, please. We congratulate Theo James on his much-deserved honour as the UNCA Global Citizen of the Year for 2024.